in 2007 when I joined Carphone Warehouse, I immediately moved into kind of the tech world. I didn't really have an interest in tech, and it kind of developed at that time. And obviously, when I joined Carphone Warehouse, the first iPhone was coming out. Obviously, there was a huge revolution. We moved from feature phones to smartphones, which have taken over the world. So I think my interest in tech was a little bit later.
As the head of retail operations at Qatar E03, you played a key role in launching the $16 billion Hamad International Airport. What were some of the biggest challenges and lessons you learned from a large-scale project like that?
It was mind-blowing. It was just such an amazing experience. I think the biggest challenge we faced was I joined the business, I think, in March 2014, and the first day of operations at the airport was the 27th of May. So we had literally 2 months, and I was still around 200-300 people short. If you think about when online started, right, it was very much about, I'm going to order a product and I hope I receive it. Then it became within 5 days, then within 2 days, then within the same day. And I think the biggest impact we've seen recently is this whole quick commerce. The traditional leadership was very much about, treat everyone the same. Modern leadership isn't about treating everyone the same. You treat everyone how they want to be treated.
We're delighted to have you here, Taiyab. I feel like there's lots to unpack about your journey and your experiences, but I'd love to start with the fact your careers in retail and sales has spanned over 2 decades, and it's intertwined with your leadership and innovation. But reflecting on your journey, where did your initial interest in retail, sales and technology first spark?
Sure, yeah. I think when I was studying, I didn't really know what I wanted to be when I grew up. So when I was at university, I did a part-time job because you have to pay the bills, and I was at Burberry in menswear. And that's where I really learned about retail and sales and customer experience, and that's something I really, really enjoyed. It's ironic actually, because when I was younger, I was a real introvert, and I think I came out of my shell a little bit more during that period because you have to talk to customers and what have you. And it was really, really cool being in the West End and you're selling really expensive designer clothes, and I was just a poor student at the time. So I kind of really learned a lot about retail kind of back then. Tech was a little bit later actually, because in 2007 when I joined Carphone Warehouse, I immediately moved into kind of the tech world. I didn't really have an interest in tech, but it kind of developed at that time. And obviously when I joined Carphone Warehouse, the first iPhone was coming out. Obviously there was a huge revolution. We moved from feature phones to smartphones, which have taken over the world. So I think my interest in tech was a little bit later, but retail and sales were very early on. So I'd say around 1994, 1995, when I was just a young student in the UK.
And was there a particular moment or kind of turning point in your career where you realised your strengths in these areas and decided to build a bit more of a professional journey around those interests?
So after I finished university, I joined the Enterprise Rent-A-Car graduate training scheme, and that had a huge impact on my career and my life. It was a fantastic business with an amazing culture, and it really taught me everything about business, but it really taught me real values around making sure you really look after your people, you teach them to do the right thing, and that you get them to deliver a great experience, and that leads to results. So that really taught me to be really, really people-centric and make sure you really look after your people and your team. So I think that really honed my values from a cultural standpoint, and I've always used those values, and that's been my mantra throughout my career. So definitely my time at Enterprise, I did almost 9 years at Enterprise. I started off on the graduate training program as a training manager, and I went up to area manager. So it was a terrific experience. It's an amazing business, and I'm still in touch with lots of people who are at a more senior level now in that business, but it really taught me everything. So I owe a lot to that business.
You touched on you've had some amazing experiences, worked for some incredible brands, but what do you think's been the biggest shift in the industry that you've seen in your career, particularly with retail?
I think the biggest shift has been what online has done to retail, but not just online shopping. I think it's the way the customer now has access to product knowledge, for example. So I remember when I was a retail salesman on the floor, the customer would come in and have very little information on the product, and you had to really be an expert on product knowledge. If we look at now, obviously I'm in a gaming retailer, our customers come in, they may be 7, 8 years old, and they know more than our salespeople, right? Because they're watching things on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram, as well as reviews and the official product overview directly from the supplier or the brand. So what we're finding is now consumers, even young consumers, know so much more about products. So I think the salesman has had to adapt themselves a little bit, because previously you go and talk to someone because they were a product expert, but now the customer has all this information at their fingertips. And even young children, right? You see little kids on their iPads and stuff, and the way their fingers are moving so quickly. It takes me back to Minority Report with Tom Cruise when he was moving things around, and that's become reality. So I think the key thing is not just about online shopping and how that's obviously taken a big chunk of retail, brick and mortar retail traditionally, but it's about how customers have access to information and products. So the retail salesperson, to add value, has had to adapt a little bit.
Yeah. It's interesting hearing you say about bricks and mortar versus online, particularly within the gaming industry. If your core customer sometimes is an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
I feel like there's something about being young and being able to go into a store, and I certainly remember, picking up a game or choosing one. Do you think there will always be space for bricks and mortar? We won't see more of a shift to online.
So I think it's interesting. I think if you look at the Middle East, for example, I mean, I've been in the region for over a decade now. I think physical retail still has a terrific future here, mainly because for 8-9 months of the year it's very, very hot.
Mm-hmm.
So shopping malls here are a real destination for people to go to.
Yeah.
Also, I think even before COVID, I remember going to a retail presentation, a retail conference, where they had someone very senior from Emaar, who's obviously built Dubai Mall and most of this beautiful downtown area that we're in, and they were talking about the fact that this is even before COVID. They want malls to be 40% experience, so F&B experience, gaming, interactive. They don't just want it to be about shopping, buying physical products. So I think that's always been something that they want to do. But if you look at a typical consumer in the Middle East, they will go to a mall. Yes, they will go and eat something in the food court. They might go to the cinema. They might buy something from the supermarket. But obviously, lots of people go to the mall to get away from the really challenging weather, right? Because it's wonderful to have the sun out, but obviously it can be quite uncomfortable in the summer. So mall retail is still very, very relevant. Also, I think that a place like the UAE is so diverse. If you look at the populations, the majority of the population here are expats, and it has a very, very strong influence from South Asian expats. And traditional South Asian, buying and selling is very much about, I want to talk to someone. Right? I want that comfort of talking to a human being. So I think that mall retail is still extremely relevant. I think you might find things like, the non-considered purchases like groceries and stuff. I think those are things that potentially will go online, because it's just easier, and you're just going to order some bread and some eggs and you do it every week anyway. But I think more considered purchases are still very relevant to physical retail. And if you look at children's products, I think kids still like to walk in and touch and feel. I think you raised that point earlier, right? You just want to grab that product and see how it is. I remember when my daughter bought something online, I think from Amazon or something, and it turned up, and she looked at me and she said, I didn't know it was going to be this small. So I think there is a little bit of that where you want to come in and touch the product. So I think Middle East and retail in malls is still extremely exciting, and it has a real longevity, I think.
Yeah. And continuing, to touch on your career journey, as the head of retail operations at Qatar Duty Free, you played a key role in launching the $16 billion Hamad International Airport. What were some of the biggest challenges and lessons you learned from a large-scale project like that?
It was mind-blowing. It was just such an amazing experience. I think the biggest challenge we faced was, I joined the business, I think, in March 2014, and the first day of operations at the airport was the 27th of May. So we had literally 2 months, and I was still around 200-300 people short. So the biggest challenge was recruitment. So as soon as I got my visa and stuff, I was literally on a plane every week trying to hire people, because you go around the world and hire people and visit amazing places like Morocco and Tunisia, Sri Lanka. We went to Eastern Europe to hire some Russian speakers. obviously around the region as well to hire people. So that was the biggest challenge, was to hire people, and also remember that you're working for just a terrific brand in Qatar Airways, right? And what you can't do is compromise on quality. So we didn't want to be in a world where we're just ticking boxes and filling vacancies. You have to have people who are real ambassadors, for the country, because you're representing the national airline in the state of Qatar, right? So you had to make sure you hired the right people. Then the challenge was I had a team of 1,500 people with 53 nationalities. So that adds huge complexity to the way people communicate, the way they operate, because everyone's different. The team was very, very young. Lots of people we hired, it was their first time leaving home and leaving their family, so adjustments in terms of accommodation and buses and even things like diet had to be taken care of. And when we opened, I think we opened with around 80 or 90 retail stores, and then it was making sure you had the right diversity, the right mix, because you want different nationalities and different shifts, because you want every customer to come in and feel they can talk to someone and not feel intimidated, right? And then it was also finding the right people with the right interest for the products, because not only did we have the core duty-free offering, which was obviously mainly liquor, tobacco, confectionery, you had obviously perfume cosmetics, and it was the largest perfume cosmetic store in the world. And also we have luxury boutiques such as Hermes and Tiffany, Bulgari and Burberry, and again, you need to make sure people had an interest for those products. And then the challenging thing that you had was then you train people and then say, oh, do you know what, I want to move to this brand, and it was a real challenge around people, but very much about hiring the right people, placing the right people, and then just general engagement, making sure you're there to support the team, making sure they feel engaged and happy and well looked after, because in my experience, happy employees will lead to happy experiences for our customers, right? So hugely challenging. Not much sleep, lots of coffee. There were a number of instances where literally I went home to literally have a shower. It changed my shirt and bits and then straight out again. So it was really challenging but very rewarding. And the airport is consistently wins awards for the best airport in the world, one of the best GP operators in the world. And I've no doubt the team there have taken the business to the next level, but I'm extremely proud of being there on that opening day and seeing the vision come into reality.
You're currently writing a book as well, focused on customer-focused strategies. But what would you say are some of the most important aspects businesses need to focus on to kind of truly put the customer at the heart?
So I've been writing my book for a while. It's actually become a long-standing joke with some of my friends. They're like, how long is it going to take you? But obviously it's about balancing time between work and family and other things. The biggest thing I talk about in the book is about how to building a customer-centric culture. Because what happens is typically customer experience projects or initiatives, once there's COVID or something happens, such as a recession, all those things are nice to have and they're thrown out the window from a cost perspective. But those things are fundamental to any business, be it your mission shopping program, be it how you collect customer experience data, be it NPS or CSAT or whatever, and what you do with that information. But lots of businesses think very short term, think, oh, we don't need that, let's scrap it because we can save some money. So I think the book really talks about is making sure people across the organisation understand that putting the customer at the heart of everything is absolutely critical. It's really interesting because I was reading this quote, and apologies, I don't know who said it, but it was really interesting. And I actually saw it on LinkedIn a few weeks ago. I was just scrolling, and one of those things where you really like it and then it disappears and you can't find it ever again. You think, oh my God, why has this happened? But it was about that every organisation basically has two types of roles. One is someone who serves the customer. The other role is someone who helps the person serving the customer. Right? And it was just a really simple way of looking at things, right? And I think too often people assume that, well, I'm not working in sales channel, I'm not serving a customer, so therefore I don't need to be customer. Well, you do need to be customer centric. You need to think on behalf of the customer. So the book talks about how you can create a culture of customer centricity within your organisation, within your teams, create something called customer champions, where you have people in different departments who are the voice of the customer, making sure C-level are very much engaged. I think what you find in culture, especially I think in the Middle East, is lots of the culture of organisations in the Middle East are very much top down, where the C-level would dictate what needs to be done. I think we're seeing a big shift now where culture is now not just top down but bottom up as well, which I think is really, really healthy. Because ultimately what happens, and I've seen it before in organisations where there'll be a huge direction the company wants to go in, you know, the CEO or COO moves on and then someone else comes in and completely changes the agenda.
Yeah.
And I think that really frustrates people in organisations. And unfortunately, I think big multinationals, that does happen quite a lot actually. I think if you have a culture where it's top down and bottom up, then the core of the culture remains, irrespective of who's coming in, and he or she sees, you know, the state of the organisation or where they're trying to go, and just carries that work on rather than coming in, scrapping it all and starting from scratch. So yeah, so the book is very much about organisational culture and how we can get not just, you know, sales channels but support functions to think customer and put them at the heart of all the discussions that people make.
Definitely. And speaking of the customer experience, I would say technology has probably impacted customer expectations as well.
Yeah.
What would you say you've kind of seen that's been the most significant, that sort of impacted that customer experience through the way technology's kind of innovated over the last decade?
So I think it's definitely over the last couple of years. I think if you think about when online started, right, it was very much about, I'm going to order a product and I hope I receive it. Then it became within 5 days, then within 2 days, then within the same day. And I think the biggest impact we've seen recently is this whole quick commerce. So literally, I was out with someone I knew, and we were in a restaurant, and he was like, I've got a bit of a headache. And he got on the phone, and within half an hour, a biker turned up with some paracetamol.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's this happened? He goes, I just ordered from, we know one of these local apps that we have, delivery apps. So I think customer expectations have shifted so dramatically, where it's not just about, I want the right product at the right price with the right quality, but I want it now, and I want it fast, I want it quickly. So I think that's a big shift that we've seen in terms of consumer expectations, because customers are now a lot less patient. They want everything right now. So I've definitely really seen that, especially in the last couple of years. And I think with Dubai being at the forefront of, and the leadership of Dubai being at the forefront of technology and innovation, I've definitely seen that kind of shift here. But we have even just extraordinary things like in this part of the world, like, so do you know about Qafu? Have you heard of Qafu?
No.
Qafu, it's just the most extraordinary invention ever. So Qafu is fuel on demand, right? So basically you download the app and you're running out of petrol, or you get home, it's late at night, oh God, the car's on empty. You go in the app, deliver my fuel, between midnight and 6 a.m.
Wow.
Leave your petrol cap open, the guy rocks up, fills you up, and then you're good to go in the morning. And it's the same price as the petrol station. So you sit there and go, oh my God. So I tell friends and family back home in the UK, and they're like, you're having a laugh. Yeah. We normally pop down to the local Esso, and it doesn't matter how cold it is. And obviously you have to pump the gas, the petrol yourself out there. So there's lots of these really quirky, consumer-centric innovations that we're bringing out, and it's really, really cool that places like Dubai has been at the forefront of stuff like that. It's really, really cool. But when I first told people about that, they thought I was making it up, and they were like, oh no, it's too hot here. Isn't it health and safety? No, it's not clearly, because it's all been approved and signed off, and it's very obviously Dubai is also very, very regulated, so they definitely don't cut corners. You can't build an amazing city like this by cutting any corners. So, so there's lots of new innovation that's coming really, really fast. But I think recently, what I call quick commerce has been something that's really, really changed the way people shop, and also customer expectations now. I mean, like I said, back 5-6 years ago, you order something, I might get it in the next 3 days, but now my expectation is I want it today. Yeah. Even yesterday, so my youngest daughter's at an age now where she wants a phone. We're delaying it. And now she's got to the stage where she's literally the only child in the class without a phone. So we're going to get a phone. So my wife was like, well, do you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to give her my old phone and I'll buy a new phone. And we sat there and she said, right, I want to buy this iPhone. And they can deliver within 13 minutes. And I was sitting there going, within 13 minutes? I can't even order takeaway within 13 minutes. So I think customer expectations are changing rapidly. I think that retailers really need to embrace these technologies and really implement them to make sure they take the experience in store to the next level, because there's only so much your salesperson, your sales advisor can do, right? They can offer a great experience, they can make it personalised, they can offer be very, very polite, they can go the extra mile, but you need these technologies. So I think that there's lots of opportunity around products that different retailers sell. So, for example, you go into a furniture retailer, right? People want to know how that furniture is going to look in their house, right? So, is there an opportunity to use, VR, etc., to have, my living room, this is what my sofa looks like. But the other thing, dimensions, right? Because you think, you always buy a sofa and you go, hang on a minute, it wasn't as big or small as I thought when I ordered it. So I think there's absolutely an opportunity, and I think that can actually help people close a sale more effectively.
And when it comes to leading large teams and sort of managing complex operations, that obviously requires really strong leadership skills. What would you say your approach is to leadership, and how do you kind of keep people motivated and aligned with goals? I know you touched on those personable elements, but in terms of motivation.
I think what's really important is that traditional leadership was very much about treat everyone the same. Modern leadership isn't about treating everyone the same. We treat everyone how they want to be treated, because everyone is motivated in different ways. And I think it's very interesting actually, because I think having worked in retail in the UK, it was very much about empowerment. We want to empower people. We don't want to micromanage people. But I think effective leadership is about having balance, because some people need a bit of micromanaging, and that's not a bad thing. Maybe they're very new in their journey and need to hold their hand a little bit. But some people are very comfortable being empowered. So I think that's kind of important. I think when you're running a large team, you have to be organised. One of the things I'm very proud to say, and I think my team will say as well, I'm super organised. I write all my things down. I'm very, very driven around my tasks. Despite my family members hating it, I respond to every email every single day. I have this OCD. I don't like going to sleep with an overflowing email. I have to box that off. And even other things, I think that one of those things that I do is, and it's really bizarre, but I have this thing where I respond to every message people send me. And I know we all get these, this plethora of cold call messages on LinkedIn, people trying to sell you AI solutions and e-commerce optimization and marketing and SEO. But I do politely respond to every single message I get. I respond to every single WhatsApp I get. Obviously, when I have a team of over 300 people and I'm accessible to everyone, you get lots of messages from people. I do respond to people. So I think it's very important to be very, very organised. It's really important. It's very important to obviously treat people over how they want to be treated rather than how you think they want to be treated. I think as a leader you need to be extremely humble as well. I think the era of that draconian direct leadership style is a thing of the past. It is very, and this generation, we talk a lot about this generation, the generation that has been born after the year 2000, and and a lot of them talk about they want meaningful work. They want a leader who cares about them, looks out for them. So I think those things are also very important as well. Really, really engaging, looking after your people is so fundamental. It's really interesting because when I was an assistant manager, member enterprise, I was actually a miserable person, and I wasn't very people-centric. I was a bit direct in my style, and it's really funny. And I got some counselling from our then HR director who gave me some tips on leading people. And I remember her saying to me, "Try being nice to people." And I was like, "Okay, this is revolutionary." And I was nice to people, and then I realised I actually enjoy being nice to people. And also, when I was nice to people, they actually were more productive. So that was something that obviously I was very, very young at the time, and that was a flick that kind of switched within my mind. So so I think it's about being organised, being humble, really engaging with people. And I think the other key thing about being a leader is just being available. I think you want to be accessible to your team. I spend a lot of my time in retail stores. It's really funny. Every organisation I join, it's become a funny thing where I say to them that, I will come to the office for meetings, but other than that, leave me to it. And I think I've been very blessed by working with some terrific leaders who've really empowered me.
If you could give one piece of advice to someone who's, about to start their career, what would it be?
I think you need to be really resilient. You're gonna have things that knock you back. You're gonna be bad days and good days. Some days the sun shines, some days it rains. It doesn't rain very often here, but in general it does. I think you've just got to be resilient, and you've got to really have a lot of self-belief. And I think it's really interesting because obviously since COVID, I think mental health in general has come to the fore. Lots of people talk about it, and it's about if you can create a mindset where it doesn't matter what happens externally, nothing impacts you, and you just have that self-belief. I think that's something that's very, very special. So I think when you're starting your own business or you have your own idea, you're going to get a lot of setbacks. A lot of things will hold you back, and if you don't have that resilience, I think that's something that's going to really, really push you back. But if you believe in yourself and you believe in your idea, you need to really, really go for it, I think, because those are your dreams, not someone else's, right? So, and it's very easy for people to just say, oh, that won't work, or I don't believe in that, or what have you. As long as you believe in it, do it. And also, don't be afraid to fail. People fail all the time. Things don't work out. It's fine. You need to learn from it, right, and move on. So I think resilience is really, really key.
We come on to the trending in tech round now.
Sure.
So AI is obviously revolutionising the entertainment industry, from films and music to gaming. If you're into gaming or know someone who is, everyone's probably seen how AI has enhanced the gaming experience now. Games have become more enjoyable, challenging and immersive, but from your perspective, how do you think these advancements are shaping the future of gaming, and what potential do you see for AI to create even more of an immersive experience?
So I think there's tremendous potential in what AI can do for gaming and technology in general. The biggest thing that is going to shape this space is photorealism. It's how quickly AI can make experiences completely customizable within a nanosecond, and it makes that shift. You're in a gaming world. You've got your headset and what have you, and suddenly, that gap between reality and gaming is so thin, and you don't even realise you've actually made that leap, right? Now, that technology I think is some way off at the moment, but the way I think AI and machine learning capability is evolving at speed, I think that is going to be the biggest shift about how you can have completely customizable experiences based on the real world, and they can be completely immersive, and how that switch can happen within a nanosecond, right? So I'm literally driving down Sheikh Zayed Road, I'm arriving in Business Bay, then I'm here, I put on my headset, and that experience is replicated in a complete real scenario. So it doesn't feel like a game, it feels like literally like it's a video, an HD video. So I think that is going to be the biggest shift, and actually scares people actually. I talk to lots of older people and they say, oh my God, really, is that what's going to happen? And and it's really ironic, because I was out the other day having coffee with a friend of mine, and he was talking about, do you remember that film, Total Recall, with Arnold Schwarzenegger, when he was on Mars and he was creating his own experiences where, I want my partner to look like this, I want this scenario, I want to be in this situation. I mean, that movie was from the early 90s, and we're 30 years on, and I think we're at the cusp of that. So I think gaming becoming as real life, and AI technology driving that, I think will be the most interesting space in my point of view.
And bonus question for this round, because
Sure.
we were talking about it earlier,
Sure.
we have to ask, what's your favourite game, or what was your favourite video game?
Do you know what? I'm a football fan, so I've always loved the FIFA series, which is now FC25, and it's really interesting. This part of the world is football crazy, and when I go and talk to my team in Saudi, they are obsessed by football, mainly because of Ronaldo fever. So that's always been a personal favourite of mine.
And we come on to the final section, which is the quick fire this or that round.
Okay.
So iPhone or Samsung?
Samsung, Android in my blood. My entire family is Apple, and my wife is like, we have a MacBook, an iMac, and Apple TV, we have the whole everything, and I was like, you can't escape, even if you wanted to. I've always been an Android guy, and I think that's going to remain.
Yeah. And Spotify or Apple?
I would say Spotify, but I'd have a caveat to that because out here we have an app called Angami, which is the local music app.
Okay.
You get music from everywhere, but a lot of the telcos out here, when you subscribe to a postpaid plan, they give you the Angami. So Spotify, but I'll put a local twist and say Angami.
Yeah. And Netflix or cinema?
This one always leaves me very, 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 conflicted. Do you know what? I'm actually going to go old school and say cinema because I do like a bit of popcorn, and a drink. But ironically, it's really interesting actually because a lot of cinemas out here do this thing now where we will deliver popcorn to you, and you can enjoy your Netflix at home, which is really interesting take on things. So, but I do like the idea of obviously content on demand. That's really cool, and obviously I do like to binge watch on the weekends and stuff when I can. But I do like the cinema. Yeah.
And laptops or tablets?
I would say laptops. Actually, I'm a laptop kind of guy because I did have an iPad, but I'm a laptop kind of guy, so yeah, I prefer laptops.
And ChatGPT or virtual reality?
I think ChatGPT is really, really interesting. I've done some work with it, etc. So I would say ChatGPT.
And video calls or voice notes?
Voice notes, I'm afraid. I literally, when I'm in my car, I'm always voice noting people. It's just convenient, especially connecting with friends and family back in the UK. I'm terrible at video calls. I don't know. I'm more face to face, but I do send voice notes. And I exchange very, very long voice notes with my sister. Literally 15, 20 minutes, half an hour sometimes. You're just driving and talk about random stuff, and then you get a response which is, I don't remember anything you said, but which is all very, very interesting. So voice notes.
And finally, if you could bring back one piece of tech that's either evolved or it no longer exists, what would it be and why?
Well, I guess it's just a retro in me, really. I always loved the VHS cassettes, and I still have a number of them. And and my kids are constantly saying, "Oh, why don't we get them converted?" And what have you. One of the things we'll never get around to. So I think VHS, but. I did like the old-fashioned audio cassettes as well, and I make lots of mixtapes and stuff back in the day, and have your own songs on there. But I guess you can do that with your own playlist now on your phone. So there was something romantic about that, about creating your own, your own little playlists and stuff. But I would say the VHS cassettes because I've got a number of them sitting at home, so that would be nice to bring back. But maybe I'm showing my age, right? I don't think my kids will say. It's really interesting because. I remember walking in a few years ago to my children and they were watching a cartoon and a number of years ago they were both, my older team, were sitting there just laughing, and there must have been like 8 or 9 at the time. I said, "Why are you laughing?" And like, "There's a guy in the cartoon, he's got a phone, there's a big wire attached to it." And I was like, "What's so funny?" Because phones don't have that. And I was like, "Yes, they did." But they thought it was like a bit of humour, and I was like, "That's the way phones used to be." So it's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, Taiyab, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. That brings us to the end of this week's episode.
Great, thank you for having me.